On the Wikipedia page for ontology, there is an illustration of a man watching a movie of himself making eggs inside of his own head. This illustration is meant to depict a Cartesian theater, a metaphor for location in the mind where all conscious experiences congregate so that the audience of the self can watch and interpret them. The phrase takes its name from philosopher René Descartes and is connected to the idea that all sensory input and conscious experiences are presented to the self for observation at a central location in the brain. Immanuel Kant took influence from René Descartes to create his theory of transcendental idealism. The idea behind this theory is that the way that things appear to us are inherently different from the way they are. He makes the distinction between phenomena and noumena. Phenomena are pure sensory experiences, how an individual subjectively experiences light, sound, touch, and so on. Noumena are the objective things that are being sensed. The brain processes the objective noumena through the senses until they are experienced by our consciousness. Through the latent processes of the brain, this translation from noumena to phenomena creates a gap between how things are and how they appear to us. The same way that there will always be a fundamental gap in communication, and that the thoughts are encoded into language, received by the other party, then decoded in the way that they interpret it. This could be tied back to Plato's allegory of the cave, in which a group of people have been trapped in a cave their entire lives. They cannot see the outside world, however they can see the shadows of the outside world projected onto the wall. We can only experience life through the shadows on the cave's wall and never the objects in themselves. In film, the use of a camera to capture visual stimuli is a process that creates a gap between what the director is trying to convey and what is actually seen. Talented directors are able to close this gap as much as possible, yet there is no way to completely get rid of this latency. What is seen on screen is not the real thing that the camera picks up, much like René Magritte's Sissy ne pas un pipe. The painting depicts a pipe, yet it is not a physical pipe that you can smoke from. It is the shadow on the cave wall projecting what our brains recognize as a pipe. Through movies, you can gain a perspective on a director's ideology. How they choose to illustrate a topic gives you insight into how they view the world. It is through art that humans are able to express their views on life to share with others, which is an important part of being alive. Even so, art is still a shadow of one's ideology, shrouded in lights, colors, and sound to be picked apart and dissected. Through this, one is able to feel more connected to humanity as they use their own experiences and reasoning to analyze what they are seeing and compare it to what others are seeing. The recognition of the self through the other. Many of Martin Scorsese's films follow a common narrative of a real-life historical figure's rise and fall from power. He shows the luxuries that come with a life of riches, along with how power inevitably goes to someone's head. They take advantage of corruption in an institution to the point of overindulgence, causing harm to themselves and those around them. In all these cases, their luck eventually runs dry and they have to adjust to the lows after the high. After watching enough of Scorsese's films, you understand that his ideology behind the films is to ridicule these personalities. It's impossible to walk away from his newest film, Killers of the Flower Moon, with even an ounce of admiration towards what the Hale crime ring did to the Osage Nation. The main character, Ernest Burkhart, is self-described from the beginning of the movie as greedy and money-hungry. His drive for excess wealth leads him to doing inhuman things to the community he lived in. Scorsese does a great job in his films depicting how easily one can fall to iniquity. As characters start to grow in power, they feel indestructible until they start to get sloppy in the work, leading to their downfall. However, these drives come from an innate place found in everyone, which allows an audience to judge the characters, either identifying with or condemning them. The Wolf of Wall Street is another Scorsese film featuring a DiCaprio character driven by pure greed and compulsion. While the movie was intended to tell a tale of selfish appetite being fed at the expense of others, it soon became a Bible for business majors everywhere who see themselves as a larger-than-life figure that will take over the corporate world, even though most of them just end up getting an administrative job at their dad's company. Arthur Schopenhauer later built on Kant's idea of the phenomena noumena with his concept of the will, the noumenal force behind all phenomena. The will is a baseline driving force behind all human behavior, unobservable by the senses and therefore unable to be experienced as pure phenomena. Instead, the world of phenomena is shaped by the will. Schopenhauer's concept of the will was later built upon by other philosophers into categories such as the will to live, will to die, will to pleasure, and will to power. All of these drives are present in every human, but are experienced and expressed in different ways depending on the person. When watching The Wolf of Wall Street, some may identify with the suckers that Belfort is selling the penny stocks to, and therefore would condemn his actions due to their will to live and will to power currently being threatened by people like him that still exist. Others may identify with Belfort himself, and see his impulsive will for power and hedonistic will for pleasure within themselves, the recognition of the self through the other. However, Schopenhauer says this will can never be satisfied, as if it ever reaches an end, the force behind life in the universe would stop. Sure, there would be a brief moment of pure joy and gratification, but due to entropy, the universe would eventually fall back into instability. Much like Sisyphus, a character from Greek mythology punished by the gods to push a boulder up a mountain just for it to roll back down again over and over for eternity. But in the iconic words of Albert Camus, one must imagine Sisyphus happy. The work of pushing the boulder up is exhausting and repetitive, but the struggle itself is enough to fill one's heart. Plus, once he gets to the top, he gets to stroll down the mountain, appreciating the scenery around him, enjoying the mere fact that he's able to experience life and consciousness firsthand. Schopenhauer relates the constant drive of the will to the Buddhist idea that desire is the root of all suffering. To find salvation from suffering, one must abolish the notion that self and the other are two separate entities. Viewing oneself is no different from the universe at large. As the basis of consciousness is seeing oneself as separate from the other, the complete dissolution of the self is nearly impossible. Only through lifelong meditation or psychedelic drugs can one come close to this state. However, being knowledgeable of the fact that you are part of something bigger than yourself can help ease suffering in the idea that one's existence is all part of a larger process leading humanity towards nirvana, heaven, or enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. Every person is yanked out of the void into consciousness without any understanding of how or why. We can only experience things through a world based on the language we are taught and must navigate the world to the best of our abilities, unaware to a certain extent the unconscious drives, desires, and will that exist in the noumena. We only know things as how they appear to us, never how they fully are. You will never completely understand how another experiences their subjective consciousness, in the same way that no one will ever completely understand how you experience your own. However, it is through language, culture, art, music, and overall human expression that we can communicate our inner worlds and work together towards something greater than ourselves.
If it's not love, then it's the bond that will bring us together.